All right, back in the chairs, thinking about Oregon against Oklahoma State. And the first thing that comes to mind is like, oh, back and forth, high-scoring type of game.
No, it's not.
No, right? Like, we're looking at an Oregon team that was undefeated last year, first ever undefeated regular season. They had this chance to be the national champions. Didn't happen because they lost to Ohio State. They come back reloaded, no more Dylan Gabriel, other guys who were gone. But, man, like, this is a national championship contender we're going to get a really good look at on Saturday against Oklahoma State.
The world has changed. The world has changed in terms of recruiting. It's a canvass the country and find the very best. And if you have the resources, you can afford to pay for those great players. And that is what Dan Lanning has brought to Oregon because he had experience at both Alabama and Georgia. He saw it firsthand and how they assembled national championship style teams. He now has that know-how. He goes there and voila, resources available, and he's built that kind of program there. And he's got an offensive coordinator in Will Stein who has absolutely brought unbelievable efficiency to that side of the ball with quarterbacks that had great experience, both Bo Nix and then Dylan Gabriel. And now here comes Dante Moore, who I think is really talented, having watched him a little bit at UCLA. And I think the recipe is for big stuff in Eugene.
Well, they have a formula, and they still depend on high school recruiting, but they'll go and find some pieces to fill a void. And especially at quarterback here of late. We've seen it at the wide receiver position a year ago, all the guys they brought in, and also at running back. But defensively is where Lanning has made the biggest change. This is a much, much more physical football bunch, especially last year, and they lost a couple pieces to the NFL. That's where you've seen a transformation, I think. Not to say they haven't had good defensive guys. I played with a few of them in the league. Alex Molden was the #1 pick from the secondary. But I think consistently now on the defensive side of the ball, it used to be all offense. Nah, you got to deal with a complete football team.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be. I thought of Oregon, it was scheme, it was bells and whistles. Them at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball are a totally different football team. What Dan Lanning did was he sat there, he looked at Georgia, he worked at Georgia. He says, you know what? That would work out here. And that's basically what he's done. It's five-star cherry picking, get the transfers, and development kind of goes out the window, but that's okay. You don't have to develop when you're that deep.
Yeah, Lanning's done a great job of majoring in recruiting and having a second minor in free agency. We saw that with DeCorian Moore, who's come in as a true freshman wide receiver to join that great group that he got there. But you also bring in a guy like Isaiah World, a tackle from Nevada who was the best available in the portal last year, to go fill immediate needs. Part of the reason Oregon lost against that Oregon team or the Ohio State team was they had some injuries along the line of scrimmage. Well, now they are stacked, and Leak Terry, their offensive line coach, has done a really good job. Told me in the offseason that he believes that this is going to be possibly the best line that he's had there. And that's saying something because they've had some really good offensive lines.
Bernard Sewell and those guys.
There's been so much talk about Penn State, and we saw Ohio State and what they did to Texas. Oregon's laying in the cut. They got a quarterback that they can win with. Tosh Lupoy, what he's done on the defensive side, they're a complete football team.
And they got an exciting schedule that we'll get to in a little bit. But since you guys are talking about it, earlier this week, Mike Gundy in their weekly press conferences.
The duck.
Well, oh yeah, I mean,
Don't poke
I don't know if he's going to roast
the foie gras.
Mike Gundy making this into a game between the haves and the have-nots.
You know, Oregon is paying a lot of money for their team. So from a non-conference standpoint, there's coaches saying they should play teams that are spending the same amount of money. I think Oregon spent close to 40 last year alone. So that was just 1 year. Now, I might be off a few million.
I got a ton of respect for Coach Gundy. Ultimately, how blessed are we to be in a place that's invested in winning? If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning. And we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And ultimately, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level. And we're really fortunate to be in that situation.
Wasn't Gundy around during those Hartley-Dyke years way back when? I mean, come on, really?
Yeah,
Listen,
no, they had the cash rolling.
Randy and I are old enough to remember when Oregon was a have-not. when they didn't have all the resources. You can go back and watch the movie Animal House and see the stadium in the backdrop. This was not always bells and whistles. And then a guy by the name of Phil Knight and a bunch of other folks that got excited about Oregon athletics put a bunch of money in there. And now we're in a pay-for-play era that allows for them to even further contribute. But for Mike Gundy to forget that T. Boone Pickens was in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and contributing a heck of a lot to what grew his program and his ability to recruit the finest to Stillwater, Oklahoma, is a little bit
that's rich.
Suspect.
Yeah, it's very rich on his part, considering I think T-Bone was the first one to make a $300 million donation to a particular institution. So
you call him T-Bone, but you don't like T-Bone?
I must be old.
I thought T-Bone Pickens was his cousin.
What time's dinner?
When did he go to T-Bone?
Got tomahawk ribeye.
I got it on the front. T-Boone, my bad. Pour out a little liquor for T-Boone, my bad. But I also recall Oklahoma State teams built similar to Oregon. Their running game. They had the passing game. They always had a solid quarterback. And defensively, which they still can do, we'll see if this Gregory kid plays, who had the 3 sacks in the first ball game, but then was arrested. But they used to have a high-flying offense that was well-balanced. We'll see if they can bring that to Eugene.
All right, so is anybody going with an upset here, just since we make picks out here? Okay. So let's look at Oregon's schedule, because I know they've had one game. We're going to get to sit back and watch them on CBS this weekend. I love Kenyon Sadiq.
That one right there at the end of the month is the one that I got my eyes on.
At Penn State.
At Penn State.
Which is the whiteout game at Penn State, Big Ten championship rematch.
A monster game as to who's going to wrestle control and at least serve notice to Ohio State.
Great one at the end of the season, too.
How about your former favorite church?
Signetti.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, especially coming off the emotion that's going to be expended in Happy Valley. Although they get a bye. They get a bye. So
Iowa City, November 8th. It's going to be cold. That's not a game to sleep on.
Cold duck.
Cold duck. All right, here's the deal. Part of Oklahoma State's problem has been their inability to be able to run the football. This is 2-3 years now running, even with tremendous talent in that room, that they just haven't been able to do it. And last week against UT Martin, 3 yards per carry. They're just not getting the push, which limits their ability to be able to threaten offenses in what they do.
And they had everyone returning last year. That was all the hype was around
Ollie Gordon.
Right, Ollie Gordon.
Year, they were going to run crazy.
Yes. And it didn't materialize.
The problem this time is inexperience at quarterback. Tough place to play with that.
Couldn't get Alan Bowman
what
back.
They're doing. Yeah.
And we've already seen that Oregon can win when the duck mascot's head comes off.
Find a way.
You find the really good points to make.
Run, Ricky, run! Run, Ricky, run! All right, we'll see you Saturday.
With those flippers on. That's
CBS.
got a tough
That
deal.
duck's name Forrest?
Back here in the chairs.